Bush has offered a $17 billion bailout to two of America's car giants. The short-term emergency loans are...
From America to Japan, the car industry was thrown into crisis. Car sales plummeted, jobs disappeared, and share prices collapsed as investors abandoned an industry on the brink. It's still happening. 2 weeks ago, Nissan announced 1,200 jobs would be going in Sunderland. Yet back in the autumn, while the rest of the industry was in financial freefall, the price of Volkswagen shares stayed stubbornly and surprisingly high. In the world's financial centres, investors, especially those hedge funds, thought they saw the chance to make some easy money. It seemed obvious that Volkswagen's high share price would have to fall eventually, and many investors decided a bet on this was as good as printing money. This is Curzon Street in the heart of Mayfair in London. It's nicknamed Hedge Fund Alley because so many fund managers like to have their offices around here.
All a hedge fund is an investment fund that can invest in any way it wishes.
Justin Urquhart-Stewart is an investment manager in the city.
They operate in a rather dark area of the city in terms of how they like to invest, quite quietly, quite secretly. So they've had a bad press because most people don't actually know what they do. Are these people the warlocks of the city who are out to try and ruin us all, or are they trying to make the best for their investors?
More and more hedge funds sniffed the chance to make a financial killing by betting that VW shares would plunge. Alexander Pesco runs a fund in Mayfair.
It was sort of obvious to anyone who'd been in the business for a long time that there was a big misvaluation in place because the shares of VW were trading at a huge premium to the other companies in this sector, whether you compare it to the European car manufacturers, the American car manufacturers, or the Japanese manufacturers. It was trading at maybe 20 times earnings.
In other words, hedge funds thought Volkswagen shares were overpriced and would soon fall. To place their bets, the hedge funds used a process called short selling. It's key to the astonishing series of events which were about to unfold. We asked our City Insider to explain how it works.
So if I was a hedge fund manager and I wanted to go short selling, this is what I'd do. First of all, I've got to borrow the shares. There are 10 shares which I've been able to borrow from some of the institutions. Now I can actually try and sell some of those shares. And I know that these are £10 a share. So I'm going to sell these to the markets for £10. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to get £100 back. £100. What I'm going to do now is wait. Because as far as I know, these shares are going to go down in price. So we'll just wait and see until that happens. In fact, it has gone down. It's gone down to £5 a share, so I can go and buy them back. So I shall now buy these shares back, and at £5 a share, they're only going to cost me £50. There you go. All I've now got to do is return the shares and pay a fee for the privilege. So, there are the shares, there's the fee, and look, I've now made a profit of £40. That's not bad for not doing very much.
It really is that simple, but it's a very, very dangerous game.
There are some huge risks in actually operating in the short-selling market. For one thing, you might not be able to buy the shares back. But heaven forbid, something worse can happen. You've sold the shares and then the share price doesn't go down, it goes up. So you've then got to go and buy them back at a higher price. So now you've made a huge loss, totally against what you were originally expecting to do.
So the autumn's financial crisis deepened, but Volkswagen's share price still didn't fall like other car firms. In Frankfurt, a few analysts began to speculate someone had secret control of VW shares. And they suspected that as long as that someone didn't sell those shares, the price couldn't fall. A journalist went public with these suspicions.
On the 17th of October, we published a theory about what actually is happening with VW share price. Basically, the heart of this theory is that that Porsche bought a lot of, or secured itself a lot of more options on VW shares than the market has thought.
Daniel Schaefer reported speculation that Porsche had used cash-settled options to gain secret control of almost all of Volkswagen's shares. A company doing this in Britain would have to go public, but under the German rules, they don't have to.
Basically what they did was a kind of creeping takeover, which means that they left the markets in the dark about when they were going to do the next step, and through the use of options, nobody would really see them increasing their stake.
20% of Volkswagen shares are locked away, owned by the state government of Lower Saxony. Now, if Porsche, let's say, controlled 75% of the shares, that meant they would have cornered the market in VW, which would explain why the price wasn't dropping.
When I called Porsche and told them that we know of this theory, they immediately dismissed it and called it a fairy tale. When I asked them about, okay, if this isn't the truth, what is the truth then? They didn't give me another explanation.
This is Germany's stock exchange, the Börse. When it closed on Friday, October the 24th, Volkswagen shares were worth just over €200. That weekend, on Sunday afternoon, Porsche dropped a bombshell. It revealed it owned or had options on over 74% of Volkswagen shares.
So I received the email and sort of gave it a cursory glance, and then sort of did a double take, like you see in sort of Tom and Jerry movies when they go past the scene and then kind of pan back, and then called a couple of people to see what they thought, and sort of quickly realized that Monday morning was going to be pretty explosive.
The hedge funds who had bet that Volkswagen's share price would fall realized they had got it terribly wrong. Worse still, they had to find shares to replace those they'd borrowed to make their doomed bets. Yet Porsche seemed to have locked up most of the available shares, and it wasn't selling. The markets are shut on a Sunday, so you can imagine what happened here in the DAX at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. The market went absolutely wild as traders chased the few remaining VW shares.
We were really shocked. People there was no color in their faces. They were really white, and it was, you know, when you're really shocked, you have no answer for those questions, and that was exactly the situation. You know, I'm working with the stock market for 25 years. I never saw that before.
To stem their losses, the hedge funds and other desperate investors fought over the remaining shares that were available, offering higher and higher prices. Before Porsche made their announcement, Volkswagen shares were bumbling around €200 to €400. Then on Sunday, they dropped that bombshell. By Monday, VW share price exploded. Look at that. It went from around 400 to over €1,000 each, making it briefly the most valuable company in the world.
Well, on Tuesday morning, the share price went up from 450 to 1,000. Increasing Volkswagen's market cap by an extraordinary amount. And then all the people sort of involved in the situation, whether it's the regulators, the index trackers, the exchanges, started to panic.
It was sheer panic. It was sheer panic in London, in New York, but all over the world. Everybody wanted Volkswagen shares, but there were no shares around. So that's why the share price increased step by step by step, and even further, because there was no liquidity and everybody trying to buy.
Hedge funds who'd borrowed Volkswagen shares to short sell had to buy them back and return them to their owners by a given date, or their losses could be unlimited.
This is the most deadly situation, the nightmare scenario for any hedge fund manager, where they've got a position and they find they then can't close it out. Not only can't close it out, but the price is going further and further away from that. Say minute by minute they're losing more and more money. And so they've got to find a stock to be able to close it within a given time. So this is exactly the same as Cinderella trying to get home before she turns from riches back to rags.